August 1st, 2018, we're here in Doisachep Mountain, and I want to talk about God and having a bad rep. God's got a bad reputation, and I want to see if there's any reason for God having a bad reputation. A lot of bad things said about God. Let's see if any of them are true. Probably the guy who, and there's several different religions, but let's look at the Christians first. The guy who really slammed the Christians the hardest was actually Gandhi. He was my second favorite moral leader. And he said, I'd be a Christian if I ever saw one, implying that the Christians do a lot of talking, but they don't do a lot of acting. That's kind of a nasty thing for Gandhi to say. The other thing that he said, that Gandhi said, he said, you know, his prayer for the Christians was to quit arrogating that they're the sole and exclusive right to God Almighty. He said that the Christians, and it does say the only way to God is through Jesus. But his prayer with them was to say, hey guys, don't, you know, you're just being arrogant. You think you're the only people that have, you know, access to God. And that angered Gandhi. So, you know, the Christians are known for that. That's a couple of things that Gandhi slammed the Christians with. Let's look at some other things that the Christians are slammed. The Christian form of God, okay? Back in the 1500s, you could, if your grandma was a prostitute or your brother was a murderer and he had gone to purgatory, which is kind of like a halfway house to hell, if you had 2,000 ducats, that's Italian kind of like for dollars. If you had $2,000, you could buy him out of purgatory and get him out of hell from going to hell if you had the money. The Christians did do that. Now that behavior started the Reformation, which is why the Protestants started the Protestant Revolution. But the Christians, they did that. Another thing is, the Christians, you know, they would burn the witches. If you disagreed with them, they called you a witch and they set you on fire. You know, Joan of Arc went that way, the witches at Salem. So the Christians burned witches. They did do that. Let's look at one more thing that people are slamming the Christians for. The other thing is, there are a lot of priests in the Catholic Church who've been caught for molesting children. And then they get blamed because they say, well, if you hadn't been trying to be celibate, you wouldn't have had, you did some sexual outlet, which is complete baloney. Celibacy does not mean that you're going to molest children. There's absolutely no correlation. But they get slammed and say, well, if you're a Catholic, what do you like, boys or something, little boys? But the Catholics did that. The Catholic priests did molest a lot of children. That's true. So those are 5 allegations against the Christians. You know, they say, well, look what happens with God, okay? But it's not just the Christians. Muhammad attacked the Meccans and led a tribe, a team of 300 people and killed people. And this is the guy who brought probably the most pervasive message in the last 1,300 years about God. And so what people slam him for is for being a murderer. He was actually just a warrior. But even then, people slam him and say, well, he killed people. How could he know anything about God? They're just savages. But that's not true either, okay? Now, they did do that. Muhammad did kill people. That's a fact. But let's look at another group of people. How about the Hindus? You know, they got their way of looking at God. In the Christian way, there's the Old Testament and the New Testament. In the Hindu way, there's a thing called the Vedas. That's kind of like the Old Testament for the Christians. But the New Testament is something called the Bhagavad Gita. And it's about a guy named Arjuna and Krishna. And Krishna is kind of like Jesus was. He's the representative of God. But they meet on a battlefield where Krishna is actually encouraging Arjuna to go fight and kill his relatives. And so people say, well, he was a murdering warrior. And so therefore, what do the Hindus know? But in all 3 cases, whether it's the Christians, whether it's the Muslims, whether it's the Hindus, everybody's writing it off and blaming it on God. But I got news for you. None of that stuff is God. God didn't do that. People interpreted that, and then they believed they had a right to go do things. Well, the Krishnas told me, so I'm going to go kill the people. And, you know, the same thing with the Christians. It's just not true. God didn't do that. God's got a reputation. God's getting, you know what really has happened? God's getting emotionally abused. He's getting blamed, which is the definition of emotional abuse, for stuff God didn't do. So it doesn't matter whether you're a Christian. It doesn't matter whether you're a Muslim. It doesn't matter whether you're a Hindu. God didn't do that. God's got a bad reputation, but here's some good news. There's a different kind of God that has nothing to do with any of that will help you stop using porn. Because in 1939, there was a book written that said something incredibly valuable in the 12th page. It says, why don't you choose your own conception of God? So if you don't like what the Christians do, and you don't like what the Hindus do, and you don't like what the Muslims do, what this group of people says is choose something, anything, that will help you stop using porn. You're free now. You're free from the Christian God, you're free from the Hindu God, you're free from the Muslim God, you're free from the Jewish God, you're free from any religion, the Sikh, the Sunnis, it doesn't matter. The Buddhists, the Taoists, you're free from all of that. You have a right, you have a spiritual right to choose any God you want that helps you stop using porn. Now in the next 3 videos, we'll talk about maturation in that choice. Until then, let's not act out until the next video.